because those are important to know so that we don't give the wrong medication or just repeat the same medication, which is not helping, isn't it? Yeah. So the drug history is important both from the point of cause of the rash as well as the management, the planning for management of the rash. Okay. Okay. Moving on. Okay. The slides are changing for you. You can see the new slide.
Yes.
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 Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So we go to the past history. Okay. We want to know about previous skin disease. Right? Has the patient had similar skin disease in the past? Okay. Has the patient had this sort of rash much earlier, maybe in childhood? Okay. For example, atopic eczema. Right? Commonly, the onset is in childhood, but it may persist. It may occur in adult life also later, isn't it? So we'll be interested in that. We're also interested in any other medical or surgical disease that the patient might have, right? Any chronic illness, for example. We'd also like to know about the personal history. And one of the things in the personal history is atopy. Okay. Does anyone want to define atopy? Sister Isa, you want to define atopy?
Atopy is the process of sensitization. Is it correct, doctor?
Okay. Atopy is actually the genetic tendency for individuals to synthesize excessive amounts of immunoglobulin E, okay, in response to some allergen, isn't it? Yeah, so they get sensitized easily, as you're saying, yeah, because when they come in contact with simple things, maybe cat fur, or they may come in contact with flower pollens, yeah, which are normally harmless, but those who have atopic genes, they tend to synthesize IgE antibodies. And on the next exposure, it can cause an allergic reaction. Okay, so there are a few conditions that we refer to as atopic. Okay, uh, anybody have any idea which are the common atopic conditions that we should ask about?
Asthma.
Allergic rhinitis.
Asthma.
Asthma, allergic rhinitis, and of course
Eczema.
eczema. Okay,
Yes.
yes, very good. So bronchial asthma and atopic eczema and allergic rhinitis. And when you go to ophthalmology posting, you should also add allergic conjunctivitis. Okay, usually the first three are the ones which are included in atopy, but ophthalmologists have suggested that allergic conjunctivitis should also be included, yeah, which is quite reasonable. Yes. Okay. Then family history of skin disease. Okay, now this may be relevant in terms of genetic factors. For example, atopic eczema. It has a strong family history. Yeah? If the patient has atopic eczema, there's a 50% chance that one of the parents has got atopy as well. Okay, and of course, there are many examples of that, isn't it? SLE tends to cluster in families because of genetic factors. Atopic eczema, some cases of psoriasis, some single gene disorders, for example, neurofibromatosis, isn't it? You should usually find a family history positive, yeah. But it's also important to ask about the family history because it may be due to infection. Okay, you may find that other family members also have similar symptoms and similar rash recently, yeah, which would suggest that it might be due to infection, isn't it? Yes. Can you think of any infection that could present like that?
Dengue.
Yes. Sorry. Actually, I was answering to the text. Yeah. So I think Brother Fatul said scabies, isn't it? So it's correct. Okay. Dengue, yeah, dengue can have skin rash also. Uh, it's true, but I think skin rash is not really the major symptom over there, isn't it? It's usually other things like fever, for example. Yeah. So scabies would be an example of an infection that tends to present with other family members also affected, or even impetigo. This is bacterial infection of the skin, pyoderma. Yes, that can also present with multiple siblings affected, for example. Okay, so that can be important. Okay, so broadly we've covered quite a bit in the history. Okay, and by the time we finish the history, we should have some idea. We should have some idea what the patient's problem is. Okay, and that's good because now when we go to the physical examination, we're not going in completely blank. Okay, we have sort of narrowed down the possibilities based on the history. Okay, and this holds true for any medical or surgical patient, isn't it? Right? By the time you go into the physical examination, you've already created a differential in your mind based on the history. Yeah, so it's no different here, except for one thing, right? Because the skin rash is visible, you can actually start examining while you're taking the history. So you actually save time. Okay, you can be sort of taking the history and looking at the rash as well, isn't it? Which would sort of also help you to be more focused with your questions. Yeah, but anyway, that's basically the history. Any questions on the history? History taking? Quite straightforward, I think. No questions from the group? Okay, we'll move forward, right? And we'll go to the cutaneous examination. Okay. Now, when you have a patient with skin rash, it goes without saying that you need to do a general physical examination also, isn't it? Right? You remember from year 3, right? You examine the patient's sort of mental status. You examine whether they have pallor and cyanosis and jaundice and pedal edema and lymph nodes. Yeah. So you have to do the usual things. Yeah. It's still important. It's relevant, right? But I'm not going to repeat all that because I mean that's already familiar from year 3. Yeah. What I'm going to do is just talk about the cutaneous part of it. Okay, focusing on the rash itself. Yeah. And the first thing that we need to be familiar with is the types of skin lesions. Okay, as you know, skin lesions are described as macule and papule and nodule, etc., isn't it? And of course, when you're in year 3, you tend not to worry too much about those sort of distinctions, isn't it? You tend to describe everything as maculopapular. Yeah, every patient has got maculopapular rash. Okay, but now we are in year 4. We can't do that anymore. We need to be a bit more specific. Okay, so what are the types of skin lesions? Well, this is some of them. Okay, and of course, I'm sure all of you have read through chapter 1 in your textbook. Yeah, and you would be familiar with all these terms already, so we can go quickly through each one, through examples of each one, right? Okay, maybe we should go around the group. Okay, shall we start with Sister Afifa? Yes, what is a macule? Sister Afifa, are you with us? Yeah, you can even type the answer, no problem. Okay, maybe we need a volunteer.
Can I volunteer, Doctor?
Yes?
Okay, my name is Ainun. So, basically, what I understand Matthew is uh,